Soft goods versus plastic. It's the unlimited battle, never-ending debate with toy collectors about how we like our figures. Well, I have a definite opinion on this, and it has some sort of real-world rationale. Why do I prefer one or the other, and how is it that scale can determine whether or not soft goods work? Let's jump in today on Spector Creative. Hey everyone, welcome back to Spector Creative. I'm your host, Toy Guru Neitlich, longtime toy collector and toy maker and opinionated person, which is hopefully why you tuned in. I want to thank you for tuning in because we couldn't have this channel without you, and it is so appreciated that you are here. I hope today is a wonderful day for you. Before we jump into today's video on soft goods versus plastic capes, I have a book. It's called Fall of the West. This is about the battle, the siege of Constantinople. It is Die Hard in a medieval city. It is nonstop action. This is not a boring history book. I wrote this because I always wanted a book like this. And, well, I was like, fine, I'll do it myself. Check it out. It's on Amazon. Fall of the West. Fantastic summer reading. Got a pool. Got a plane trip. Anything. You're looking for a good book. This is it. Let's talk toys. We're talking capes today. We're talking, as I grab samples here, the difference between a figure with a plastic cape, right, versus a figure with soft goods. I have too much stuff in my hands. All right. I have a very strict kind of opinion on this. So I both love and hate soft goods. I think that soft goods work great when you have big figures because of the way cloth hangs. As an example, so here is a 6-inch Darth Vader. He has a really nice, very thick cape, expensive fabric, not definitely not the cheap and expensive kind. And it folds over him. It looks great. I also have him in the camera up there, so you can see at the top shelf there. There's a Vader way up there. Well, did I get him? There he is. Boom. So it's a 12-inch Vader I have that also has soft goods. Works. Now here you have a 3 3/4 Vader with soft goods. This is where I start to have an issue. Because one, the fabric on 3 3/4 tends to be very inexpensive. Look at how you can see through that, right? You can see me through the cape versus, something like this. You can't see you. The other reason that I have an issue on 3 3/4 with fabric is they stain. Look at that. I had a purple pen on my desk, and I put this guy flat on it, and look what happened. Oh, drives me crazy. If this had been plastic, the pen might have just left a tiny little speck that I could have rubbed off. But instead, soft goods stain. They stain so easily. This is why it drives me crazy when they're used on toys. I find that plastic just, especially on this kind of scale, 3 3/4, works so much better because it doesn't hang, it doesn't stain, it doesn't shred, it doesn't rip. Every once in a while, soft goods has a purpose. This is a really good example, this Mola Ram figure that has a soft goods scarf around his neck, right? He's not wearing a full soft goods coat or cloak. When you do that, looking at something like this Emperor Palpatine figure, right? The 3 3/4, it goes everywhere. Heck, it even goes. Hoods are even really difficult to do at 6-inch. They just tend to not cover the head correctly. So soft goods to me is something that when it complements the figure, then I like it to be more the exception than the rule. When you can do things like capes with wires, I think that's better because it makes the cape more of an action feature and more displayable. It also prevents it from shredding a lot of times at the end because you have to use a thicker plastic if you're going to use a wire. which means that's the other issue I said is that a lot of smaller figures use fabric that is inexpensive, that you can see through. So all of these combined, here's a good example. Here you have a Boba Fett figure. He's got soft goods as his, again, like a scarf, like that Mola Ram. I mean, a cape. I know it's not a scarf. But, again, the bulk of the figure, the soft goods complements it. We've seen this execution in 3 3/4. We've seen executions where Fett's cloak is plastic in both scales. For me, action figures are about play. Fabric rips, it shreds, it absorbs ink. There's just so many things that can cause fabric to look bad versus plastic doesn't have that. I mean, yes, plastic can get scoffed up, if you will, that, I got some paint issues here, but that is not, where the heck is my snow trooper? That is not as bad as this. I mean, I can't just, luckily I can still display him from the front. I just feel like there are too many issues. Now, why do companies go with soft goods so much? Oh, well, it's a perceived value. Look at the vintage Jawa from Kenner. They switched from a vinyl cape to the soft goods cape because for the public at large, especially moms and gift givers, fabric is associated with real clothing, which is associated with value. We don't make our clothing out of plastic. We make our clothing out of, soft goods. So adding soft goods to an action figure makes them more human and feel more expensive and have more added value. That's why you see lots of companies adding soft goods deliberately to try to plus up a figure, to make it feel like there's more value, and the Jawa is a perfect example. But again, while this does have its, again, perceived value, in reality, while soft goods saves money on tooling, it can actually be a more expensive option versus plastic, because you now have to deal with extra vendors, you have to deal with fabric, you have to deal with cutting, more labor, versus with something like this Anakin figure, everything is in the tool. You just have plastic, versus this Anakin figure, we've got some soft goods that have to be added. Which brings me to my final point about the skirts being soft goods, especially on 3 3/4. So I get why they do this. It's so that the characters can, kick and stuff, and, like here, Moma Nadone has soft goods, which again, well, it doesn't really show up as much, but yeah, it's very, you can see through it. You can, the cloth is very thin. And I get that, so he could sit. Boom. That's why they wanted to give him soft goods. It's utilitarian. It has a purpose. But it can backfire. The Grand Moff Tarkin figure from the vintage collection looks like he has a skirt versus, plastic version with an Imperial officer like this. So, yeah, there are just, to me, too many things that can go wrong. And unless you need soft goods in order for the figure to sit, or, like a great example would be Mando, right? I have a Mando figure here. Boom. Oh, everything's falling down. Okay. Here's a great example to go out on. So here's a Mando with soft goods, right? Versus here's a Mando with hard. It is really hard to get the jetpack on this Mando. And it's hard to get in a cool flying pose because the cape is blocking it. Versus this one, while the jetpack is sculpted on, and same thing, in different scales. They've had Mando come out in 6-inch and 3 3/4 articulated with soft goods. It works so much better in this case because, the cape is often over one shoulder. And again, with the jetpack, getting it on this guy is really hard because of that. So soft goods, when there is a reason for it. Otherwise, I feel like, man, except for that added perceived value, which I think is a fallacy, they drive me crazy. They shred. They bunch. The hoods never look right. And, yeah, you might accidentally leave a pen open on your desk and you're wound up with this. All right, so there's my little rant on soft goods. It's a cool idea in theory, just like communism. But, soft goods requires thick, luxurious fabric. When you use thin fabric on figures, that the hero figure from Mattel, the Masterverse one, oh my God, it's like one of the I guess, thinnest fabrics I've ever felt on a 6-inch figure. But I get it. The cost of labor is skyrocketing, and companies have to do what they can to get these down. But soft goods just almost invite yet another way of, they're trying to plus up the figure with added value. But when you wind up with really thin material for a cape, you have the reverse effect. And now you have a figure that feels less valuable, and you wind up with stains and shreds and rips and all of that. So I don't think I've ever ripped a plastic cape. But boy, do I have fringes, hair, all sorts of twine, all sorts of figures with capes that are shredding and falling apart. So unless you got a reason, toy companies, I'd stay away from the soft goods. Keep them on the bigger figures. 12-inch works great. Smaller you are, the less likely soft goods are to hang correctly and to be playable. Hope you found this video interesting. I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you have a particular soft goods figure that you really like, that you wish didn't have soft goods, or the other way around? Leave them in the comments below. Let's start a discussion about that. Love to have it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting, and see you guys in the next video.